Yo, what's good YouTube? I am back with another reaction video, and we back with this Nick Smith. I know a lot of people like Nick Smith on my channel. I know we did a couple of his videos, and definitely the Squad Dawkins. So we got the 6 NBA legends who would be amazing in today's NBA. I definitely found this video on his page, and yeah, I see that Larry Bird was on the front, so you know, Larry Bird got to be maybe #1 or something. I don't know. We'll see. But let's get it though. I know Larry Bird's in here somewhere, so anything that's about Bird, you know, we on it. But let's get straight into it, y'all. Straight into it.
6 NBA legends who would be amazing in today's NBA. Throughout NBA history, there's always been a debate. As the eras go by, many fans ponder, how would a past player play in today's NBA? How would a current day player play in that era? For example, how would Jordan play in the current days of the NBA? How would LeBron James play if he played in the 80s and the 90s? There's always questions. It's an NBA world that we live in, where much of it is based on speculation. It's based on what ifs. That's the NBA landscape. When we compare players, a lot of it is hypothetical. And so obviously this is just my opinion. These are 6 NBA legends that I believe would play well in today's NBA. But I want to hear your opinion down in the comment section below. Give me 6 NBA players that you believe would be amazing in today's NBA. And without further ado, I would really appreciate it if you guys could leave a like to support the channel. Let's aim for 3,000 likes. And if you're new around here and you enjoy NBA content every single week, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Number 6, Bill Russell. This one is questionable. Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell. Which one will do better in today's NBA? In my opinion, I'm taking Bill. Not because he's a proven winner. With his size at 6'9", 6'10", which suits the modern game, his athletic ability, which was amazing in the 1950s, just imagine how it would translate in today in the 2020s. He's an 11-time NBA champion and a 5-time MVP. He's obviously a top 10 player of all time. But because of the time period in which he played in, he usually seems to be overlooked. Obviously he was a great player, but when people talk about Bill Russell, they either praise him or really diminish him based on the era that he played in, which is not uncommon for players that played in the 1950s, 60s, and even 70s. But obviously he can't help the era that he played in, so we have to take him for what he did at his time. But why would Bill Russell be amazing in today's NBA? Well, he was far ahead of his time with his assist and his defensive capabilities, and even being somewhat undersized would actually be even more helpful and useful in the NBA today. But obviously the big question is Bill Russell and his offensive game. And look, Bill Russell didn't have the best offensive capabilities, and if he played in today's NBA, you would assume he'd be a little bit better. Maybe his array of moves would be a bit better, a bit of a post game, a little bit of a mid-range shot, considering his shot form wasn't actually too bad. But even as a pick and roll player, he could still average the same points per game that he did, just based off his pick and roll game with the spacing there is today. The way that I look at it is if somebody like Clint Capella, last season for the Houston Rockets, averaged 16.6 points, 12.7 rebounds, and he's around the same height as Bill Russell, since Clint Capella doesn't really have that much of an offensive game, dissimilar to Bill Russell, and if Bill Russell's able to set a screen for somebody like Trae Young or James Harden, he's going to be wide open in the paint with most defenses doubling the ball. Not to mention, Bill Russell loved to pass, so if he could set a screen for Harden, catch the ball, look to pass, if not, go in for the easy dunk, but still play the amazing defense that he played back in the 1950s, I think at minimum, Bill Russell is a 15 point, 15 rebounds, 4 blocks per game player, which would win the defensive player of the league if he played today. In addition, with his playmaking ability, for his time in the 1950s, he would also be one of those players that championship teams would be built around. And it really begs the question, if Bill Russell played in today's NBA, would he be able to hold his own? Well, no matter...
Man, I think Bill Russell's way quicker and faster than Clint Capella. I could tell you that right now. I could tell you that. He's way more athletic and quicker than Clint Capella. Clint Capella's not that fast like Bill Russell.
How good you think Wilt Chamberlain would be today? It doesn't take more than the eye test to see that Wilt Chamberlain was a freak of nature. And it was Bill Russell who played against him and got the better of Wilt more times than not. Wilt Chamberlain was over 7 feet tall and was so dominant, and it was Bill Russell who shut him down. So if I could compare him to someone of the modern NBA, I'd say he'd be like a Ben Wallace type, with much better passing skills. Ben Wallace, like Bill Russell, didn't care about his offensive numbers too much, nor did they have a vast amount of moves offensively. He's the perfect guy that you could have to lock down any other player on the opposition team, and he would play his role each and every night. Bill Russell probably wouldn't be as successful in today's NBA in terms of championships, nor would he be the star player on a team on the offensive end. But to think that he wouldn't be the best, if not one of the best defensively, is just absurd. Number 5, Pistol Pete Maravich. Pistol Pete was one of those legends that was far ahead of his time, and the people knew that even when he was playing in the moment. He would pull out moves that nobody had seen before. He was also taller than the average point guard. He could dribble like today's players, and he could even shoot the ball at an elite level. He was the prototype for two-time MVPs Steve Nash and Stephen Curry. Nash said, and I quote, "Pete is one of my favorite players of all time. I truly admired him, and I wanted to be more like him. And it's quite clear that when you watch Steve Nash, you can see a little bit of Pistol Pete in him." It's quite obvious that Pete Maravich's legacy still lives on in players today. Before even making it to the NBA at Louisiana State University, he broke Oscar Robertson's all-time scoring record, averaging a staggering 44.2 points per game without the benefit of a three-point line, which is just insane. Maravich finished his college career with 3,667 points, a mark that stands to this day. And this is what the great Bill Walton had to say about a statistician who went back and looked at this achievement.
Amazing about Pete, 44 points per game, career for 3 straight years in an era with no three-point line. Dale Brown, who coached at LSU after Press and Pete were there, Dale Brown went back and charted all the games with the running score. You know, Maravich free throw, Maravich 22-foot jumper, Maravich layup. And he calculated that with the current college three-point rule at 19.9, Pete Maravich would have averaged 13 three-point makes per game, which would have given him a career average of 57 points per game under today's rules. That guy is unbelievable. We love him. We miss him terribly. What a great friend. What a great human.
But Pistol Pete's highlights were just crazy. But if you just watch some of the off-the-dribble threes he took, and then you realize that the NBA only had the three-point shot in his final season, you soon question how great he could have been in the NBA today. Not only could he shoot, but the insane passing ability and the handles, and he was 6'5", he'd be the ideal point guard today. Unfortunately, throughout his career, he was often injury-plagued, but you can assume that with today's fitness and modern medicine, he would benefit even more than any other player on this list. Not to mention, with more room on the court today, and the spacing the way it is, a far better three-point shot than most other players in the league, Pete Maravich's range was insane. It's just tough to see how Pete Maravich wouldn't translate in today's NBA, considering most of the point guards today play the way that Pete Maravich used to. Number 4, Isaiah Thomas. If we're talking about a team that wouldn't be as great today, well, the bad boy Pistons would probably feel the effects of playing in today's NBA. They truly wouldn't be a great team. I mean, you're considering the number of hard fouls they used to have, the intimidation factor they used to bring, and I mean, with flagrant fouls today, the Pistons just don't have a chance. They really suited the old style in the 80s, and they would hate what people call the softness of today's game. But if we're talking about a player, an individual talent, Isaiah Thomas would fit unbelievably well in today's NBA. The NBA obviously has become much more of an ISO-heavy league, and with somebody of Isaiah's skill level, he'd be unguardable, even more so today than in the 1980s. I mean, could you really imagine if he were playing against guards like Kyrie Irving, Trae Young, Stephen Curry, and Russell Westbrook? IT has the speed, defensive and offensive capabilities to still be one of the toughest point guards today. Yes, the other guards are obviously elite talents, but this isn't about who's better. This is Isaiah Thomas and what he'd bring to the game today. He said in a Knuckleheads podcast that if he were playing today,
right, even when people thought you was fancy, that wasn't fan. That was just the swag of your game.
If I got to play in this NBA,
where
you can be fancy, where you can sit down in front of somebody and really pat it like 10, 15 times between your legs.
This is what I'm telling you.
Oh,
when we play, we
man.
and I ain't even.
Part of the reason that there are so many elite point guards in the modern NBA today is because many rules of the game have been tweaked to heighten their gifts. The original Isaiah Thomas was a dominant player in his era, but if he were playing today, he certainly would be able to hold his own, which couldn't be said about some other point guards in his era. For example, John Stockton. He made the dream team over Isaiah in 1992, but Isaiah Thomas would translate far better in today's NBA than John Stockton. Just a thought. Number 3, George Gervin. People really tend to forget about the Iceman. due to the Celtics and Lakers rivalry which dominated the 1980s.
That's a good one.
Obviously, San Antonio at the time in particular was one of the smallest and least promising markets in the NBA. A team that once looked like it may not survive, but then George Gervin completely changed that. It wasn't until the Iceman put on a show that they became a team, and he was a spectacle by himself. We all know that the era in the 1980s was one of the greatest of all time. You had two of the greatest players in the league, Magic and Larry Bird, fighting it out. They took the limelight. But the Iceman was also very good during this time. Whilst he entered the NBA in the 1970s, he did play 7 seasons in the 1980s and still averaged crazy numbers during his time. From 1980 up until 1985, 1 year before he retired, he was averaging 27, nearly 28 points per game, which just shows how great he was offensively. Think about how smooth he would be in today's NBA though, because it's all about isolation and floor spacing, and Gervin was 6'7", 6'8", at 185 pounds. He used to bang shots off the glass, he used to finger roll, which is a lost art form in today's NBA. But you'd still have to assume if George Gervin played in today's NBA, he'd be a better jump shooter, but he'd also be able to finish all over you with his leaping ability and with his wingspan. After all, George Gervin was the first NBA player to weaponize the three-point shot. To put it into perspective, it was the 1979-1980 season where Magic Johnson and Larry Bird were rookies, and the league had tried something new, a three-point shot. Little did they know it would eventually change the entire league. And by the end of the first season, teams had averaged less than 3 3-point attempts per game. But George Gervin was somewhat ahead of his time. He by himself averaged 1.3 attempts per game, which meant that he was open to actually taking the 3-point shots when many other players weren't. I personally think that his skill set in his prime years would be well suited to play in the modern NBA. He'd probably play different, fewer layups, and more mid-range shots, but someone like DeMar DeRozan has shown it's still a possibility to be successful the way that Iceman used to play. Number 2, Mark Price. He's quite similar to the Pistol Pete comparison, but Mark Price is one of the most underrated players of all time, and honestly, he's somebody who could definitely play in any era. He's also the least obvious selection on the list. Mark Price might be the only player mentioned here who may have been more successful playing today, even though he was very solid in his prime. The biggest difference that Price had is that he could actually shoot very well. Like, he was a shooter before we even had elite shooters. To put it into comparison, Price is one of the best shooters who ever lived, which isn't a bold statement. He led the league in free throw percentage on 3 separate occasions. His career true shooting percentage of 58.6, which is truly insane, is up there with the greatest shooters of all time, including Stephen Curry. His ability to shoot would be the absolute perfect weapon for the modern NBA. We've seen what Steph Curry has done, we've seen what Trae Young has done. Mark Price would just be very similar. He'd be perfect because the NBA today is an offensive league looking to space the floor and keep the defense stretched as far as possible. Mark Price was a superb NBA player. He was a 4-time All-Star, a fantastic shooter for his day, so he would only be better in today's NBA in my opinion. When Steph Curry had his prestigious 50-40-90 season, it only contained 6 members at the time, all of which are NBA grades. Larry Bird, Reggie Miller, Steve Nash, Dirk and Kevin Durant, alongside Mark Price. And this collection of players in my opinion could play in any era, and especially in this era, which leaves me to the next and final player. At number 1, Larry Bird. It seems to be one of...
I called it. What I tell you? I told you. He's probably number 1. I said it in the beginning. How did I know? I had a feeling too. Of course it was going to be him. But real quick before he did it, name y'all 6 players that y'all think will play today. And then the second thing I was going to say is, who's Mark Price? I never heard of him. I got to look him up. Is he good? Is he worth doing any of his videos? Let me know in the comments if I should do some Mark Price. So I never heard of him. But I told you, I knew Larry was number 1, man. I knew it.
One of the biggest questions that I've heard during my time as an NBA YouTuber. Would Larry Bird really be able to play in the modern NBA? Is Larry Bird that skilled? I mean, he was skilled in the 80s, but is he really that skilled if he played today? Absolutely. In fact, it would be scary watching Larry Bird play in the modern NBA. Like, genuinely scary. He would find it even easier than he played in the 1980s in my opinion. In the current style of the NBA, it would fit him better than Jordan. I'm not saying he's a better player than Jordan, but the current NBA style would fit him more than it would fit Jordan. Larry Bird entered the league just as the 3-point shot had entered the NBA, and undoubtedly it would be an even better asset in today's NBA than it was in his own time. Think about it. Let's just take Luka Doncic for example. Not necessarily the most gifted and athletic player. Yes, he probably has better handles than Larry Bird, but Larry Bird had the heart, he had the dog, and he had the winning mentality that very few players have today. He practically excelled in every offensive skill in the 1980s, and it's become even more open in today's NBA. Lastly, you could argue that Bird may struggle defensively, keeping up with some of the quicker, faster and more athletic players today, but with the usual small ball lineups that we see today, Bird really could become a stretch 4 at 6'9". He's a guy that was an amazing rebounder, and he could distort defenses with his outside shooting and unbelievable passing. It wouldn't even matter as much today how he played defensively compared to the 1980s, which even a prime Bird could still play great defensively if he really focused and wasn't injured. It wasn't until he got older and started having back issues in which he really struggled more so to keep up. Over the last 9 years of his career, he shot 39.8% from the 3-point line, but took only 2.6 shots from downtown a game. He averaged over 28 points per game in 3 of his prime years, without even shooting more than 3 threes per game. Imagine him firing up 7 threes a game. That is just scary. So let me know down below what you think about this list. Let me know if you have any other players that you think would dominate in today's NBA compared to when they played. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like to show your support. Let's aim for 3,000 likes. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more NBA content every single week. And I will see you in my next one. I am out. Peace.
Yeah, that's a good one right there. I told you he was number one, man. Told you he was number one. He said hit 3,000 likes. Damn, could we hit 3,000 likes? No, not right now. Not yet. Let's hit 30 or 40 likes, y'all. Let's see if we can hit 30 or 40 likes. But yeah, name your top 6 and do play in today's NBA. For me, I would go Magic, Wilt, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Julius Erving. Who else? The last one, Julius Erving. Isaiah. Yeah, I guess you could say Isaiah, but do I want to say Isaiah? Not really. Dang, I can't think of the last one, man. That's just so much on my mind right now. I really cannot think of it. One more. I say maybe Bill Walton. I think Bill Walton, he could play in today's NBA. I would think so. The big man, I definitely think he could. I know some of y'all probably gonna hit me in the comments or probably some other players I probably could have picked besides him, but I guess you could say Pistol Pete. I'll pick Pistol Pete too. I pick Pistol Pete for number 6. That's my 6 right there. Let me know y'all 6 in the comments, man. But yeah, that's about it, man. On to the next video. And also want to say shout out to Tom. I know Tom told me to shout him out in the next video. But I'm definitely going to go back to doing, I'm starting to see I'm getting a lot more people, man. I deeply appreciate y'all, man. Deeply appreciate y'all. So I'm definitely going to start going back to giving the shout outs before the video starts. So definitely look out for that. And yeah, definitely got a lot of videos coming. But I know we love this Nick Smith, man. Man, I know y'all like this. So that's why I had to do this. And it was interesting. I'm like, damn, you know, this is a good video to do. But yeah, that's his top 6. I think he did it. He had a pretty good list. I don't know who this Mark Price guy was. But yeah, that's about it, y'all. I'm not gonna hold up too much time. On to the next video, man. Subscribe if you're new. Hit that like button. Turn on that bell, man. I'm uploading every single day. And yeah, man, it's been so fun, man. So fun, man. It's been a fun ride since I came back and took those 2 days off. Now we just grind. But yeah, if y'all got some comments, leave them down below. I said comments. If y'all got some videos you want me to do, leave them down below. And hit them on my email at DATPHILLYBOINAH@gmail.com. And that's about it, man. I love y'all. I'm out. Peace.
Thank you.